Oftentimes, our parents do not know what their kids are doing on their phone. And the phone is a possession of the family because oftentimes, the parents are paying that bill. So, do you know what your kids are on and what are they looking for? And so, we educate our parent community, who is a very trusting parent community, as many of us, with your own children are. But you need to be aware of some things.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday shine online. Now, let's get back to the interview.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zandra Jo Galvan, the proud superintendent of the Greenfield Union School District, right here on the Central Coast of Monterey County, California. I am a product of my fabulous Greenfield community. I have the honor of serving 3,500 students in grades preschool through 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Georgianne Warnock. I'm the proud superintendent of Terrell ISD. We are a community located about 30 miles east of Dallas, and we serve approximately 5,200 students across 9 campuses.
Hi, I'm Rick Cobb. I'm the superintendent of Middale Public Schools in Midwest City, Oklahoma. We have about 13,000 students across 19 school sites.
How have you been successful in increasing parent engagement to help keep students safe on social media?
Yeah, so one thing that we're really proud of is our parent engagement component right here in Greenfield. So we have a director of community engagement partnerships with a few other things within his responsibility, positive school culture and so forth. And then we also have at every one of our schools, we have principals that lead a lot of the family engagement together with 2 family and community liaisons. So every one of our schools have 2 people dedicated to family and community partnerships. And we also have at our central office, the director, as well as 2 people under him that help support that, along with counselors, social workers, teachers, and so forth. And so what we get to do is provide really great topics and presentations and workshops for our parents. And so one of the ones we do every single year is talking about social media and the kind of things that they should be aware of. And oftentimes our parents do not know what their kids are doing on their phone. And the phone is a possession of the family because oftentimes, the parents are paying that bill. So do you know what your kids are on and what are they looking for? And so we educate our parent community, who is a very trusting parent community, as many of us, with your own children are. But you need to be aware of some things. So several of the workshops throughout the district are about responsible use of cell phones, responsible accessing different sites, and things that parents can be aware of when it comes to students. And we did find, there was some bullying incidents that we discovered in our district with students on students or students recording with staff members. And so we had to address those quickly. We brought the family in, we brought the students in, and we educated on the spot. And then we turned that into an opportunity to educate others within the school community. Because oftentimes people don't think it's on my phone, I'm posting it, then no one else is going to see it. And there's not going to be that digital footprint now out there. Unless it's a site, that it instantly removes, but somebody can still take a picture of it before it's gone with some of those sites. So all of that is an opportunity for us to educate our community.
Yeah, I think that we continue to work to engage our parents. We have, it's called Wednesdays with Warnock. So it's a Wednesday show that we put out every week. Facebook is still where we have the majority of our digital traffic for our parents. I think we've kind of trained them that that's where is going to be our go-to, even though we communicate in lots of other ways as well. So really working to connect with our parents in a regular format, in a regular way that we're pushing out information, and then working to build that digital literacy with our parents through some parent information nights, engagement nights, digital literacy tip sheets that we put out, the apps that you need to know about as a parent. So all of those kinds of efforts that we have to continually be engaging and educating ourselves and helping parents to be informed, things that they would have had no idea about, like calculator lock boxes or, apps that can, kids can hide things in that they might not want parents to see. So us being in front of that and then helping to share that information with our parents is one way we're working to keep them informed.
Parent engagement is still an area where we need to do some more work and sometimes work on the parents themselves. We see a lot of times parents go straight to social media to bypass channels. Earlier this month, an incident was recorded in the classroom. A parent tried to send me that through a DM on Facebook. Well, I don't know this parent. I'm not accepting a DM from somebody I don't know. And then a few days later, one of the TV stations sent us this video along with a couple of other videos. And at no point did this parent really just try to reach out to me, call my office, email me. It was just, let's go straight to social media with it. And apparently over the weekend, this video had been spreading around through social media. That's an extreme version of a story that's, tilted towards the negative, but it's not a one-of-a-kind story. There are a lot of cases where parents use social media to try to bypass communication with us or to try to force communication. Working with parents when we have in any kind of engagement, our Title I programs, our bond steering committee, we use social media to engage parents that way. But then we try to get them to face-to-face conversations. It's not a productive place to try to resolve differences and air out grievances. And so I think we need to do a better job of explaining that to parents. But unfortunately, the only time it really comes up with parents is when we're in the middle of one of those situations.
Are there any stories that come to mind about any social media incidents you have been able to get in front of or avoid by being proactive?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll start with highlighting people. And so, oftentimes when schools are closed down, and I'll just go back to the pandemic, and we closed our school downs for over a year and a half. People were curious about what was happening behind the scenes. They were very curious about, well, what is the teacher doing? And when we brought them back to school, well, where are the plexiglass? Is there sanitation procedures? How are they doing the masking? Where are they distributing it? If a student's coughing, where are they going to be held in a sanitary environment before? So a lot of that was negative in the world. Like, how are schools truly going to keep kids safe? And our parents were so frightened to send them back to school. So we took on that as an opportunity to educate. And so what we did is we started some segments. We did a lot of Facebook Live when students were on campus. And as people were walking on, we utilized Facebook Live, Instagram Live to use that as an opportunity to educate and to show our parent community a backstage pass into what was happening. So I would go through classrooms, do live Facebook. The teacher would say hello. The children would say hello. Of course, we're checking all to make sure that they have permission to be on screen time, as well as our principals were taking tours through the campuses and in a positive light. We also took the opportunity. We hired a lot of counselors, and we hired social workers. And so parent community said, well, what are they going to do with our kids? So we interviewed them too. I do a segment every week on Friday. We release 60 seconds in GSD. 60 segundos en el comunidad de GSD. We do it in English and Spanish. And we just take anyone throughout the district and we interview them in 60 seconds on what their job is and what they're excited about and proud about. Today, I did 3 segments with our team. One was our ceramic arts and digital animation arts teacher who's showing the community what he's doing. So that's really cool that they get to see that. We did one with our counselors for our middle school who are getting ready to have promotion. So we showed our parents what to expect and what our counselors are excited about. And then one we did on summer camp recruitment. So we talked about the fabulous things that are happening at summer camp and why would you not want to be here? And it's super simple. We do it with iMovie. It's our voice, my voice, I introduce, and they take the question, they talk about it, and then we do our voice stays, and we just do nothing but still photos of like what kids are doing, videos, segments, pictures, and it's no more, it's about a 60-second clip that goes out. So that's our opportunity to really utilize social media in a very positive light and to stay with that human connection. And the one last thing that I do every single night at 7:00, I read bedtime stories to kids. And we just before we did an hour recording segment. Nobody really knows it. Kids think I read every single night on the time. So kids don't be listening to this right now. But I'll sit for an hour and record by a whole week's worth of stories. And I change my jacket. I'll change my shirt, those kinds of things. And it's a bedtime story to our kids, whatever the theme is. So like this theme for this month is Asian American, Pacific Islander, Hawaiian, as well as mental health awareness. So all the books that I'm reading to kids for bedtime story all this month of May has to do with those 2 themes. Yeah, so kind of just fun things in a positive light.
Yeah, we had an incident just this year where over 100 pizzas were ordered for an event in the district, and there was some kind of debacle. I don't know, we'll call it Pizzagate. But anyway, we didn't end up picking up the pizzas. And so this pizza place had opened up and made these hundreds of pizzas for an order that we didn't have any records of. So anyway, they went to social media and said, the school district and ordered these pizzas, and we brought our staff in. But because we have relationships in the community and with people, I mean, we didn't even know as a district that this order had been placed and that had happened until we got word that it was on social media. So we were able to go talk to the manager. We were able to make it right financially with them. They thankfully took the post down because we were able to talk about it. But that kind of thing about having relationships with people, that when that something starts negatively to blow up, that you're able to talk to them and at least, we're able to offer a different perspective, and that ended up okay. Pizzagate, was saved for this year.
Sometimes just by monitoring social media pages, we're able to find out what's happening in the community, what misinformation is out there. And misinformation comes in two buckets. You have this side, which are things that you can address and correct. And you have this side, which are things that involve personnel or legal matters where you just out of necessity have to stay silent. But when we see things in that first bucket, misinformation that we can correct, a lot of times we can go to the source. If it's a community page, we can just jump in and say, hey, what you're hearing is incorrect. Or if it's just an individual, we can look up their contact information and RSIS and call them and just say, hey, this is so-and-so with the school district. I saw that you posted this information. It's not correct. Let me tell you what's really happening. They're surprised to get that call. But when you're putting everything out into the public and it's not accurate, sometimes we're going to call you, and instead of calling you out publicly, we'll just call you.
What would your advice be to educators and administrators to work together to create a culture of digital safety and responsibility in their schools?
Oh, yes. So I would say it is a huge responsibility for us, especially with so much of it every day. If you walk around a restaurant, if you walk into a community, if you walk into any space, everyone's on their phone. Like probably 90% of the people are on their phone, unless it's a classroom with kids that don't have both. But everyone's on the phone. And so how do we use that to educate people about the smart use of it? So yes, if we're capturing video, yes, if we're communicating, but not to lose sight of that human connection as well. And so there's a really important balance. Whenever I'm in any space throughout the district, or leaders are in spaces, we are capturing photos of people caught doing some really great things, and we are posting that. Absolutely. But the rest of the time, we should be engaged fully with folks and staying true to that human connection and making sure that they know we care. Because if I'm on my phone, that's a little rude and not really engaging and listening to the person on the other side. So we try to educate people on that fine balance of, yes, capture wonderful moments, post those wonderful moments, be smart about what you're using, what you're saying. And then people will assume that positivity comes out of your district, but then also maintaining that human connection side. That honestly, the reason I did story time and the reason we did backstage passes and the reason we did 60 seconds was all about human connection, because we were losing that. And we didn't feel that human to human vibe that we were so used to when we were all on, lockdown. So some of the things we do with that, really just to maintain that positivity.
I heard a speaker about 10 years ago say, imagine the worst 30 seconds of your career captured forever on YouTube. And I was just at the workshop. I was a facilitator. I wasn't really the audience, but I was off to the side, and that really caught my attention because the first years of my career would have been 30 years ago. So if you think about the early 90s, we weren't capturing everything digitally. There's nothing from that era of my teaching that's memorialized. And I'm just like any other educator. My first few years in the classroom were messy. My pedagogy was a work in progress. My classroom management wasn't fantastic. And I'm sure you could find 30 seconds from that time period that I wouldn't be particularly proud of. So as true as that was to hear that 10 years ago, think about where we are now with some of the newer social media platforms. You have smaller chunks of content that are easy to splice together and to piece into a video that really creates an image or creates a narrative that isn't exactly accurate. And as a teacher, or really as a public facing person now, it's a little bit terrifying because there are opportunities for people who don't have good intentions at all to really misrepresent what somebody who spends their life trying to help kids is doing. And so you just have to be mindful of every moment. And so I have talked to teachers who found that to be an incredible amount of pressure. Not that they would ever intend to say or do anything inappropriate, but we've all done it. We've all said something that didn't come out exactly right, or that's easy to misinterpret. And if somebody wants to use that in a harmful way, it's pretty easy to do nowadays.
What's your biggest social media concern for the future?
Yeah. So a concern, I would say a concern is the use of it, like how it's used when it's negative. And so if like someone gets on social media and bashes someone else or bashes an organization, that's really harmful. Um, and as I've matured, we think about, okay, if they're going to bash the superintendent or they're going to bash the school, oftentimes it's not about the person or the place. It's about the person who's posting that and projecting their lived experience. As I've matured, I've learned a lot about human nature, and oftentimes it's never about you when people get angry. It's really about the circumstance and how do we get ahead of it. I am that superintendent that will immediately allow my team first through the chain of command to address it and to find resolution. And even if it is resolved, because if it's not resolved, it reaches my desk, with the meeting, absolutely. But when it is resolved, I still follow up with the phone call and say, thank you for bringing that concern to us. I'm really glad that, director so and so was able to address that. And we want you to know that we really care about your child and we appreciate you coming forward. And that kind of like, whoa, like really? They actually took my concern and turned it into an opportunity to learn and to grow from it. And I think if we address situations like that in that manner, we would be more proactive and not so reactive to situations that happen. And again, always saying, this is that person's lived experience when they want to be negative about something. And just recently, last week, we had a post about one experience in one school. It actually ended positive, but the parents still wanted to say something about it, and took to social media to bash the school, even though it was resolved and it didn't make sense to us. But, human nature doesn't oftentimes make sense. And so a strategy for us is to contact the person, find resolution. We never ask anyone to take down whatever they did because it's their privy, if you want to keep it there. But then we saturate that school site with some positive things that are happening. So then we change the narrative. Like, look at all that was one negative experience, but look at the hundreds of positive things that are happening. And oftentimes that allows us to drown out some negative voice that we had dealt with already. It's not like we didn't resolve it. We resolved it, but it was still human nature for someone to take to social media to say that. And that is, something that we see all around us. So a strategy, like how do you address that? We address it, absolutely. But then we also take opportunity to say, hey, this school is doing some really phenomenal things. Let's show that too.
I think my biggest concerns really rely on the fact that more and more people are only getting their news and information from social media sites. And it really plays into the rise of this partisanship and like increasing polarization that we see, versus really being able to have balanced media and being able to examine things critically from both sides, which, I mean, you can, but the algorithm in social media feeds your bend, right? So I'm just concerned about that as an overarching, I wonder kind of where this will lead as people are increasingly exposed to one perspective or one view as algorithms trend certain ways. So I remain concerned about that. And I also just thinking a lot about artificial intelligence. There was some news out just today about just the leaders in that field and what they're cautioning our political leadership to be thinking about. And I think that is something, the rise of AI and how it will impact social media, what can be generated and shared, resembling your likeness, your word. I mean, I think there's a lot of that for us to be very thoughtful about.
My biggest social media concern in the future is that social media becomes even more difficult to manage. If you think about the prevalence of cloned social media accounts or just deepfake videos, even AI is going to introduce some problems as we continue to manage social media. Will the good outweigh the bad on the whole in the future, I think, is the question that remains to be seen with social media.
Funding is difficult. What advice would you give to other districts to secure funding to create resources that parents need?
We have different funding formulas. We have a base formula that comes out to everyone. And then we have our LCAP, supplemental concentration funds. That's a little bit more for students that are, in that unduplicated count group. And then we have all these grants that are opportunities to build structure, not necessarily hire people because the grants will have a termination date, but to really think of positive things to do at every school to enhance some of those opportunities. So for us, base and those supplemental funds that come through, we have vision, mission, and core values that culture and climate and community is important to us. Like that is just a given. So when these grant funds come and go, we still have a core mission and value to say, we're going to care on people. We're going to highlight them in a positive way through social media. We hire our family and community liaisons at every school that their job is to highlight good things that are happening. Their job is also to engage our parent community in positive themes and positive topics. We also have some of our counselors, our behavioral health social workers that mitigate some of the trauma that kids are experiencing, also funded out of those. And so I tell you all that with the funding is because if it is a priority and it's close to your heart, you don't lose sight of that. And when money comes and goes, you still maintain it as a priority. You may not have as many, if cuts are cut in half, then we understand we have to downsize. But we will always have the core value mission of engaging community, having some kind of a social media platform to announce and show people what we're doing and highlight those good things. So even if funding was slashed, it would be something that we would still figure out a way to do and to work around. Now, with these one-time funds that we get, that's the really cool money that we can do and use in a positive manner to buy equipment, like buying iPads for every one of our team members, to buying sound stage equipment to be able to highlight some of the socials that we do, engaging in partnerships with different companies that we could use, for a term for that contract to be able to highlight those kinds of things too. And so that's just the extra we get to do because we know that funding might leave. I might not be able to buy personnel out of that because it will term and we don't want to do layoffs and terminations and those kinds of things. But equipment, contracts, professional services are some really great things that we can utilize those funds for. So again, just if you have priorities, you just stick with those priorities and make sure that you figure out a way to do it.
So I think there's a lot of open source material. So I think it is being a collaborator, what's available, that is in an open space that is not costly. Those shared resources that we can come in together and be putting in best practice areas. And then I think looking at what are the potential grant funding sources that we have, and then how do we use even some of our title funds that are dedicated for parental involvement, or some of our title funds that are meant to be used to create smarter cyberspaces for our students, how we can be totally maximizing those dollars.
Now that technology has exploded and our use of it has just become more pervasive in the last few years, our budgeting needs are even greater. For us, we're looking at a 15-year bond package that's going to have a technology piece that grows by about 10% a year. If you have the ability to bake that into a bond or a referendum, wherever you are, it's probably a good idea to do that. On the flip side of that, since now this is the expectation of us in the education realm, we're going to need to ask our funding agencies, in particular our legislators, to make sure that they dedicate funding for technology the way that they would for capital improvement projects or salaries and benefits. It's just going to be something that keeps growing, hopefully at a linear rate and not exponentially like it has the last 3 years.
Thanks for listening to our smartsocial.com podcast. I'm your host, Josh Oakes. This was our District Talk segment where we interview school district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media so those students can someday launch into their future by shining online. This episode was brought to you by our smartsocial.com VIP program. It's called the Very Informed Parent Program, which helps you engage your students with teen-led video lessons. Stay one step ahead with our premium parent newsletter and discover hidden features on trending apps on teens' phones and our 54 plus live parent and student friendly events every single year. You can click on the link below to chat with one of our team members if you want a free pass to our VIP program to support your community with our smartsocial.com resources. And if you're a district leader who has a success story, we would love to feature you on a future episode. You can click the links below to reach out. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Have a great day.